Hello everyone, welcome to the new video on AWS Cloud Development Kit. In this video, we are going to cover how we can use CDK framework for CloudFront S3 as well as Route 53 configuration. If you are wondering that what we are trying to achieve in this video is, then I will highly recommend to watch my video in which I will mention that how we can set up AWS CloudFront distributions for S3 origin. In my AWS CloudFront distribution for S3 origin video, I have performed a lot of manual steps on AWS console. What I have done in that video, I have first created a React application, then I created the S3 bucket, then I uploaded the artifacts or builds of React application to S3, then I have set up the AWS Certificate Manager for CloudFront, then I have created a CloudFront, and at the last I have set up the Route 53 to support CloudFront so that the static website which has been hosted, it can be served with specific domain name. In this video, whatever the actions which you have performed manually, we are going to do everything automatically using Cloud Development Kit. So let's get started. Before going into the coding section, we need to first fulfill the prerequisite for this course. So for this course, there are a few things which is kind of must to have. First, the Node.js should also get installed on your box. You should have an AWS account and AWS profile configure. If you don't know how to set up your AWS account as well as the AWS profile, then I will recommend you to watch my video. The link is added to the description. And the third most important thing is you should have a CDK framework set up. So if you don't know how to set up it, there is another video and the link is also added to the description. We can open our favorite terminal and then we can navigate to the path where we want to start our CloudFront setup. And from here, we can quickly check the CDK version. So right now the version that we have is 2.13.0. It might be possible that when you are trying to perform the same action which is mentioned in the video, because of the change in CDK versions, a couple of commands will not work. But now the CDK framework is much mature compared to the initial days, so all the commands are mostly stable commands. So the next thing that we need to do is we can quickly create a directory. We can run the command mkdir CloudFront. So if you are using Windows, then you can run a different command, or you can go to that folder and just right click and create the new folder. Then we can navigate to this directory, and then we are going to run a command which is cdk initialize init app, and here we need to put the name of language and it will be TypeScript. So this is going to take some time, so once this is done, then we'll continue our video. CDK app initialization command has been done, and it is also suggesting a couple of useful commands which we are going to see in another 5 minutes. If you try to open this folder structure, it has created a couple of folders: bin folder, library folder, test folder. We can write unit test cases for the code which we are writing right now, and then there are a couple of files. So whenever we are creating any node applications, the starting point will always be a packet.json, and here we can see that the couple of useful command. Similarly, when you are dealing with CDK framework, then the starting point will always be a cdk.json file, and it will suggest us what will be our file which we want to look at. So if you can see that here it is pointing to bin cloudfront.ts file. If you can open this cloudfront.ts file, here we can see that the app has been created, and then it has created also another stack. So what we are going to do it here right now is we are going to change a couple of kind of libraries here. So the default library which has been provided by CDK framework is AWS-CDK-lib. But the latest CDK framework is going into more modular approach, and that's why instead of this app.-cdk.lib folder, we are going to use another library, and it will be, now we need to download this library. For downloading this library is pretty easy. We can again come back to terminal and we can run npm install, and if you already configured the yarn, then you can also run the same command yarn install. Now we can see that at the root level we have this app, and inside this app we can have multiple CloudFormation stack. So what exactly the CDK does is it just helping us to choose our programming language. in our case it's a TypeScript. And when we are going to run couple of command like a CDK synthesis or CDK build, it is going to generate the stack which will be a CloudFormation stack. So and that the CloudFormation stack is going to be deployed. So because the AWS understands this CloudFormation stack, we are going to focus on single stack in our application, and it will be a CloudFront stack. So we can provide any logical ID if you want. uh, right now here we can see that it is showing a warning because the root library which we have selected is a core library. And if you are going to inside this CloudFront stack, which is inside lib folder, we can see that here it is still using this old library. So we can quickly modify this as well, and instead of construct we can use here app, and this app is also provided by this library. So now we can see that the error has been gone. Now the next thing which we are going to do is we are going to show two things in parallel. First thing is AWS management console, and we'll see how we can kind of create a resource, and similarly how we can write the same code in this CDK framework. Now at the right side you can see that there is a AWS management console. I logged in using my account, simply serverless, and at the left side we can see that we have this code editor. We are going to perform 6 and 7 steps in this entire video. The first step is to kind of create the React application. For that, let me again open my terminal, and here I'm going to write command npx react app and the name of app, let it be app. So this is going to take some time to download the files and everything. Once this is done, we can see that there is a one folder which has been created app, and we'll see all the required files over here. Since it's going to take few seconds to kind of download everything and kind of need to kind of install everything, so what we can do is we can quickly go ahead with our second step, which is creating the S3 bucket. So if you want to create a S3 bucket using AWS management console, then first we need to go to S3, and then we need to click on create bucket. For the AWS CloudFront distribution for S3, we only need to provide the bucket name, and we can go with all the default property. So similarly, when we want to kind of do the same thing using CDK framework, then what we need to do is I can quickly split the terminal here. We need to add one more library, which is npm install AWS CDK AWS S3. So this library will be responsible for creating this S3 bucket. Now we can quickly clean up our code from here. We can remove this thing, this code is not required, and here we can start importing the required files. The start as s3 from AWS S3, and we can write here constant bucket and then new s3 dot bucket. We can provide the scope, which is nothing but current context. The ID will be the logical ID which will be required for CloudFormation stack. We can put CDK CloudFront S3, and then we can provide the properties for the bucket, the record properties bucket name, and here we can put CDK CloudFront S3. Okay, that's it is required for creating this bucket. Now we can see that the create React application is still in progress. So what we can do second thing is we can just write our code so that once the app is ready, we can try to deploy the artifacts of the app. So for that we need to introduce another library, and this will be in here npm install AWS CDK AWS S3 deployment. Now what this library does is we just need to provide the bucket name or the bucket handler, and then we need to provide the location of the artifact. And when we are going to run our CDK commands, then it is going to take the artifacts from the location and it is going to upload to S3. So from the top we can see that the app configuration is done, and at the bottom we can see that this library is also installed. So what we are going to do here now is we can quickly come back to this app folder. At the top we can navigate to this app folder. This app folder is representing our React application. We can quickly try to run the command npm start, and now we can see that this React application is going to be, the React application has been loaded. We can again run another command, which is npm run build. Now this will be responsible for generating these artifacts which is required for S3 to upload. We can see that there is an app directory here, and we have this build, which is this artifact for this entire directory. Now we are going to write our code. We are quickly going to import the library. Import start as S3 deploy from AWS S3 deployment, and here we're going to write new S3 deploy dot bucket deployment current context, and then name can be S3 deploy, and then we need to provide the properties. So the property is what is the location that we need to pick up to get the content. In our case it will be sources S3 deploy dot source dot asset, and this will be our app, and here the build directory. And second thing is we need to provide the destination bucket, and this will be the bucket which has been created using CDK framework here. So we have performed for two steps. First, create the S3 bucket, and second thing is to upload the content, upload the asset to the static bucket. The next step is to create this SSL certificate. For creating an SSL certificate, we can go to ACM, which is Amazon Certificate Manager, and we can create a certificate. So what we can do is we can click on request, and here we can request for a public certificate. Then we need to provide the fully qualified domain name, and then we also need to do the DNS validation of the domain name. If you are using any vendor which is not a part of this AWS, like if you have brought your certificate from GoDaddy or from Big Rock, then you need to kind of create the hosted zone in Route 53 so that the CDK framework can automatically do the DNS validation. But this is mostly will be required when your certification is a part of your AWS Route 53. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to navigate to Route 53. I brought the certificate from GoDaddy, but I just changed the name server of the certificate from my DNS provider to this name server. And that's why when someone is going to hit a request, it is going to redirect it to this name server. In the CDK, what we need to do is we just need to kind of look up to all the hosted zone and just find out the domain which we are going to use, and then probably we can use the same domain for website configuration, or we can use a CDK subdomain for our website configuration. The step will be constant domain name. It will be, and then we can also provide a subdomain. It can be, let's say, CDK CloudFront. Then we need to include another AWS CDK library which will be responsible for dealing with Route 53. And for that, we again come back here. We can write a command npm install AWS CDK AWS Route 53. So this library is also added, and we can come here and then again import the library. Once we identify what is our main domain, we can quickly take that domain and we can kind of perform multiple operation on that domain. So for that, what I will do is I just write the code zone, because this is the hosted zone, and here I will write route 53 dot hosted zone dot from lookup, and here we need to provide few properties. First will be definitely this property, and then we can say zone, and the last property will be the name of domain, which is domain name go to this domain name. Now once we have identified what is the hosted zone that we are going to target, we need to kind of create the AWS certificate, and for that we also need to include another library which is npm install AWS CDK, AWS Certificate Manager. What we can see here is we need to provide the fully qualified domain name. We also need to do the DNS validation, and this is what we are going to do in CDK framework. So first we are going to import this library. For importing library, I will write here import start as certificate manager from @AWS Certificate Manager. And now we can write our code here, constant certificate. At the end, when the certificate is going to complete, we are going to get the ARN, and that's why I'm going to put here certificate ARN equal to new certificate manager dot. Since we are going to do this DNS validation, and that's why here I'm going to put dot DNS validation, and here we need to provide the app name, the CloudFormation stack, ACM, and at the end we need to provide information, which is what will be the domain name. In our case it will be a subdomain, and then what will be the target hosted zone. It will be the zone which we found out from the lookup to route 53, and then the region which we need to target. So for the CloudFront distribution, the region that we always need to select is US East 1 region. So once the certification has been created and it is also validated using DNS validation method, we are going to get this certificate ARN, and we are going to use the certificate ARN in CloudFront. So the next step is to create the CloudFront. So for creating a CloudFront, we can quickly see what are the properties that we need to deal with creating a CloudFront. Create distribution. For the CloudFront distribution, there are two important properties we need to work on. One is origin, and second thing is behavior. If you are selecting origin as the S3 bucket, then it is going to select couple of more properties, which is origin access identity, and we can create the new access identity, and there also change the bucket policy, and we can mention that yes, I want to kind of update the bucket policy. So what this is going to do is it is going to allow the CloudFront to access the bucket, and it is also going to make sure that the only the CloudFront can access the bucket. So let's quickly try to write down this behavior configuration into CDK. So for that, let me quickly again install the library. The library which we need to do is npm install CDK and AWS CDK CloudFront. Once this library get installed, we can quickly come here. We can write import start as CloudFront from AWS CloudFront, and here we can quickly do one thing. We can start writing the distribution, and for here new CloudFront. And since we are distributing for the web application, we can select CloudFront from web distribution. This we can provide the name ID CloudFront, and then we need to deal with properties. Now, like I said, there are two main properties, origin and behavior. So origin is nothing but it can have more than one property. It's an array. We can start writing here. The origin that we are going to target is S3, and inside the S3 we are going to target the bucket, which will be the bucket we have. And then we need to deal with origin access identity, and for that we can create a new identity. For creating a new identity, we can write the code identity equal to new CloudFront dot origin access identity is, and the name of identity which will be used by CloudFormation. We can code ID. This is also fine. Then here we can mention origin access identity will be an identity. Now we need to deal with another important thing, is this thing when someone is going to update the bucket. So that means we are also going to update the bucket policy. For updating a bucket policy, we can quickly write our code here, which is bucket dot add to resource policy, and here we can mention that new IAM For that we also need to add one more library. So let me quickly add library which is AWS IAM, and here I'm going to quickly import this library. Start as IAM from AWS. So we need to add one IAM policy statement. In this policy statement we are going to mention that actions, and in the action we are going to say okay, only the get actions is required, so we can put it as the dot get object. And then resources, which resources we want to allow, we can mention here bucket dot arn object, and here we can put start. That means anyone can access, and the principal will be new IAM dot mechanical principal, and here we can mention that cloud formation, the identity which we have created dot com is missing here. So what this bucket policies does is it's going to create one S3 policy, and in that case only the get object is allowed. And here we mention that the identity which we have created here, only this identity will have access to this resources, which means that the CloudFront can access to S3, and this is only a get operations there. So these two properties are done. Then we need to work on behavior. For behavior we are going to do a few things. Let me quickly come here and just talk about the behavior. So we are mostly going to go with the default behaviors, and this behavior is again an array, so it can allow more than one property. Then we need to deal with a couple of properties. First we can see that the viewer protocol policy, and in our case when someone is going to hit the URL, then instead of going to HTTP we are going to redirect it to HTTPS. And for that I'm going to write a code which is viewer policy. It will be a CloudFront dot viewer policy protocol policy and redirected to HTTPS. So this is that we have selected. Second thing is allow HTTP methods, and for his I'm going to write allow HTTP methods, and here it will be CloudFront dot CloudFront for allow methods, and here we can mention only the get and head method that we need to allow. So this is default, so if you're not going to mention this, then this is since it's a kind of a default, then we don't have to kind of mention it, but always good to kind of mention this property explicit. And third thing is, do we need to compress the object? You can say yes, we need to compress the object, and which is this property. And the last but not least, we can also say is default behavior, which is this is the default behavior, the recommended behavior we want. You can say yes, is default behavior. We say yes, true. So now the distribution that we have, it's going to generate the URL, but the URL will be randomly generated. If you want to bind to a specific domain URL, then we need to attach to a certificate. For the new distribution, I don't have a kind of a concrete certificate which I can show you, but there are few distribution which I created manually, so I can quickly show you that what are the property it has. So let me quickly expand this thing. Here we have actually banded the custom SSL certificate, and one of the property of SSL certificate is we need to provide the alternate CNAME, and then we need to bind the custom SSL certificate, and then we need to deal with couple of these properties. So let me quickly try to write down all this property as a part of CDK framework. For creating this ACM certificate, what we can quickly do is we can quickly write viewer certificate, and here we can mention that from CloudFront viewer certificate from ACM, and here we can mention few properties we required certificate ARN, and the certificate ARN we can get from certificate. So this is actually generated a certificate. To getting a certificate ARN, we can write certificate ARN. It's going to return a string certificate ARN, and then we need to provide the environment. Now environment we require region. We can get the region from AWS. It's not added to AWS core, so I can quickly add it here. AWS, and here we can write AWS dot region. Similarly, it required account. You can write AWS dot account ID. So this is good. The next property which is required is node. Now I will mention this dot node, and another property which is stack. You can mention stack nothing but our this current stack, and it is going to ask few more properties. One is apply remove policy. What we are going to do when someone is going to ask to apply remove policy, we need to add this remove policy. The remove policy will be a part of, let me quickly check, it is added as a part of CDK core. So what we are going to do is someone is going to say remove policy, then we are not going to do anything, and then it is going to ask another property which will be a metric. And for adding a metric, what we need to do is this metric information will come from CloudWatch. So we need to add one more library which will be CloudWatch. Let me quickly try to add this CloudWatch. Import star from CloudWatch from AWS CDK CloudWatch. Now here we can mention that how we can get this metric. So we can write new CloudWatch dot metric, and here we can pass few properties like namespace. We can put as anything we want. We can say CDK, and second thing is metric name. We can again pass CDK, and here we need to return it. So this viewer certificate is good. Now we need to bind this viewer certificate. There are few more properties which we need to deal with the viewer certificate. So right now we just added this ARN. We need to also deal with this security policy. For dealing with security policy, what we can do is when we are calling this from ACM certificate, it is adding few properties. We just completed the certificate properties, and then we have these options which is dealing with these options. So coming back here, we can just type comma, and then we'll start putting then options. So the option for us is what will be our SSL method. We can write it can be a CloudFront dot SSL method dot SNI. So if you can come here, we can see that the by default the method which has been selected is SNI. So that means the certificate will be taken care by AWS. If you have any legacy application, then we can enable this property, and in that case the certificate which is going to be created, it will be a dedicated certificate that is also called as VIP certificate. So SNI has two, so this SSL method will have two type. One is server name indication, which is the default one, and another one is we can go with a VIP name which we are going to select when we are going to select this option. So in our case we don't have to deal with this thing, so we are going with server name indication. Then the another property is security policy, and here we can write CloudFront dot security protocol dot which protocol we want. The recommended protocol is 2021, so we can write 2020. And the third thing is alias. So this is nothing but the name of our domain. So we have this subdomain, we can add it as an alias. So Now, after creating this viewer certificate, we can just pass this information to this CloudFront distribution. So this CloudFront distribution has thing is which we call as viewer certificate, and here we can pass the certificate which we have created, the viewer certificate. Now, the one of the few properties which is pending here is default document root. We can put index.html. So here we can put default document root, and you can put index.html. And if you are dealing with a single page application, then you can also deal with error things. So what is going to happen in case of single page application, if someone is trying to refresh a page on a particular URL, then when they are going to click on this refresh button, then this should kind of load from that page, and this is will handle in kind of a React application. But in this case, we need to mention that if someone is going to put something, then it should redirect back to index.html, and that's configuration will be done by error configuration. So here we are going to do, if there is an error code, and this is error configuration is again an array, so we can put inside an array. And here we can mention error code. If someone is trying to access a file which is not available, then what we can do is we just pass a 200 error, and the page which we want to show, response page, it will be again index.html page. So I think this is all configuration we required for everything. So let me quickly try to summarize what we have done. First, we have created the S3 bucket. Then we have written a code to deploy to S3 bucket, whatever the build certificate that we have. Then we have selected a domain configuration. Then we have actually find out what is the domain which is available in Route 53. Once we got this domain, we have created a certificate using AWS Certificate Manager. Then we actually started doing our distributions. For the distribution, we have added as a bucket. We have created an identity which is here. Then we also modify the bucket policy to add as an identity, and then we have created this certificate, viewer certificate, where we mention that what kind of certificate we want, what kind of metrics we want. Everything seems to be good. Now, what we can also do, the last thing which is pending for is to kind of update the Route 53. For updating a Route 53, we again need to install one more library for handling this Route 53, and that is something is called as AWS Route 53 targets. We can quickly include this thing. Now, here we need to mention the Route 53 configuration, and for that, like me quickly write Route 53 new Route 53 dot a record. This is the alias record which we need to create. So let me quickly show you the one of the configuration which I had done in one of my video, and the link is also shared in the video. So we need to go to hosted zones, simply serverless, and then I just created this CloudFront distribution. If I'm going to, and this is a record, and this is recording, this is pointing to the CloudFront. So we can quickly do here, we can quickly do the same thing. We are going to create the a record is, then we can say a record, and at this we are going to configure the record name will be our subdomain name, and the zone will be the default zone, and the target will be dot 53 dot record target dot from alias, and here we can say new target dot CloudFront distribution, and here we can enter the distribution. So here we are saying that just create a alias from, just create a record from alias, and then select CloudFront as a distribution. So this is mostly that we need to do. The next step that we need to do is we need to run a code which is called as in CDK synthesis. This is mostly going to fail because I just need to provide the profile information, so I can write the code export AWS. So let me try to quickly do this same thing on terminal. Let me close this terminal and let me clear this thing. So here I'm going to export the profile, and then I'm going to run CDK then command, and here it is asking me that it's not able to identify what is a region and everything. So what I will quickly do is I will come back to my starting file, which is this bin starting point, and here we can mention the account information. So what I will do is I just uncomment this thing. I will come here, from here I will get my account information, and here I can put the account information, and I'm going to target on the same region. So this is good. So guys, I just did a small change over here. Is the subdomain should we have a fully qualified domain name, and this is what I've changed here. And then we need to run a command which is CDK synthesis, and this command is going to generate our CloudFormation stack. So if you are coming here and if you are going to see that this has generated this CloudFormation stack for us, and then the last thing that we need to do is we just need to run CDK deploy command, and this will take care of deployment part. So if you're doing first time, then you also need to run one more command CDK bootstrap, uh, which I'm going to show you in 1 second once the deployment is done. So this deployment is going to take some time, so let me quickly show you one more command here. So if you are changing any region, then you also need to run this CDK bootstrap command, and this is going to copy paste a lot of tools which is required for CDK to work on. So uh, whenever you are changing any region or when you are doing installation first time, then you need to run this command. So this is going to run one more thing is once the CDK is generated, then it's going to run a CloudFormation template, and we can see that the template is created. Then it will start creating a resources. So once everything is done, then I will kind of continue my video. Now we can say that the deployment is done. We can also see that the website is up. We can quickly see all the configuration which is required for the distribution. So this is the new distribution which has been created, CDK simplyserverless.com, and we can see that the SSL certificate had been bound. We can also go through S3 bucket, and we can see that the content has also been uploaded. So everything looks good, everything's working. So thank you very much for watching this video, and please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.